And welcome back. This is your Mental Health Matters with Joni and Aaron and myself, Melanie. This is our second part, and the overarching theme is schools and families working together. So this is episode 4, and this particular segment, we're going to be talking about the top questions parents ask counselors. We're going to go through them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got the first one for you,
Okay.
Melanie.
Okay.
How might a family's transitions, events, circumstances impact a child?
Well, that's a very complex question.
It is.
So,
It is.
How is it impact? It can be in different ways, and it also depends on the event, right? Is it a traumatic event? Is it like we went through COVID, we went through flood, we went through fire, right? Those are all things that a child can be really impacted by, and they usually come out more. That's usually a child becomes more dysregulated. They may have some regression. So when a child is going through something and they're feeling very impacted, they can sometimes regress to a stage that they'd already developed through and worked through, right?
Yeah.
So these are all things that happen, or their behavior becomes heightened. A child is exposed to something at home or at school, and then in the home or school on the opposite end, all of a sudden their behavior increases because of this event that has happened, and the parents may not be aware of it. So question that, I guess, is the answer. Question all the things that are happening and see if it's how your child is presenting with what happened to them. If it was a trauma, and if they're more escalated or they're more emotional or they're crying, that is probably because of something that happened to them.
Yeah.
It makes sense, hey?
Behavior is meaningful. Like, always keep in mind. Like,
Absolutely.
Something, yeah.
They're communicating something, right? And you always have to be trying to seek that out, right? Okay, did I answer that okay?
Yeah. No, I feel like that
Okay,
is great.
good.
Okay.
So second question.
Next question. Yeah. So this is for Aaron.
Yeah.
What can I do or say to my child when they are emotionally distressed?
Okay, so we're kind of referring to when children have meltdowns, essentially, right? Put it into more simple terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess those meltdowns, they happen when they're young toddlers, but it presents differently as they get older, right?
Yeah.
The teens have their own kind of
Yes.
meltdowns too.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, like, one way of coping with it as a parent is to be in the moment with them, right? And
I
I
like
think
that.
that lots of times it can be like embarrassing if your child is behaving in a certain way, and we have our own response then to this, right?
Our own
Because
triggers.
you're embarrassed and
Yeah.
you're seeing your child struggle, right? And you feel for them.
Yeah.
And I love this framework that Dr. Bruce Perry proposes for dealing with such moments, right? And he uses the 3 R's. So you regulate, you relate, and then you reason with the child.
Mm-hmm.
And that can help guide you through those difficult moments. And I guess, so what he means by that is we need to first regulate the child, right? They might be upset over, I'm picturing this at Mac Island, child not being able to get their ice cream on the way out
Right.
of swimming that they typically, right? We
Yes.
see it all the time in the
Yes.
hallways where they're
Yes.
having
Yeah.
a temper tantrum, they want their ice cream. We first need to be able to kind of calm those emotions,
Because
right?
they can't
And
really
be with
hear
them.
They can't hear you if
No.
they're
Yeah.
escalated.
And that's through your own response. Like, you have to be regulated yourself.
Yes,
as well.
your
Yeah.
own system.
Yes. So whatever it takes to kind of regulate in those
Mm-hmm.
moments, right? And sometimes maybe it's giving them a hug, it's holding
Mhm.
them, it's
Rocking.
walking with
Yeah.
them, it's
Yeah.
it could be sort of physical in
Mhm.
nature, right? Of how we respond to the child. Once they're regulated, that's the time when you can maybe relate to them and be able to say, I know you really wanted that ice cream
Yeah.
from Yoga and Fruits, and I know you really wanted this, or you wanted to go here and we're not able to, and you're really
Mhm.
disappointed by
Mhm.
that, and being able to relate to their emotions that they are likely experiencing.
So
You
that
know, your child-
validation.
Yes, right?
Validation. Yeah, I hear you.
Right.
This is what you're feeling. I understand.
Right, because the child might not be able to necessarily communicate how they're
Yeah.
feeling,
Mhm.
right? That
Yeah.
they don't have, and that's what Joni's saying with behavior, right? We have to look at that and kind of wonder, okay, what are they trying to communicate by
Yeah.
this? Because they might not have the verbal language to
Exactly.
be able to articulate exactly what it is that they're feeling.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
And your response is you're able to articulate that for them. a
Yeah,
little
and
bit.
help them.
Yeah,
right?
you're giving them that language and
Yes.
you're teaching them that.
And it becomes a teachable moment,
It sure
right? When you
does.
start to
Yeah.
relate, and then that's when you can reason with
Yep.
them, right? When they are, and be able to help them understand or
Mhm.
help them learn different ways of kind of expressing
Yeah.
their concern. So, I mean, it's easier said than done. We know that.
Oh, yes. It is easier
But
said than done.
yeah.
that could be a guiding bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going on to the next question. Why is my child so good at school, but challenging at home? This is such a doozy. I love this one.
Yes,
'cause
I get this one a lot.
all the time.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah. More so in elementary, but
Yeah.
it does happen in secondary as well.
Yes.
Like, why are they, like, I get the report from my child's teacher, they're just an angel at school and follow the rules and things are like going really well, and then they get home and they're a disaster and they're flipping their lid all the time and
Yeah.
just yelling and screaming and crying. So it's like that meltdown of the end of the day, I just release. So my explanation is that home, that tells me that home is their safe zone. Like,
Yeah.
home is a place that it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like speaks leaps and bounds of the relationship that you have with your child, because they're able to have that
They're
meltdown
safe.
with you. They're safe. They're
Mhm.
just that release. And you think about the dynamics of school. So school is like a structure. You have to follow this rule. You have to go here. You have to go there.
Yeah.
And for some kids, they have to hold it together and
Yeah.
just like go through the motions and just like, and then when they get home, there's also routines to follow, but it's a little bit more flexible,
Yeah.
and they can just
Yeah. Yeah.
let go at the end of the day. So that's kind of my.
And I think parents are left like questioning themselves, like,
Yeah.
what am I doing wrong? How is it that this child is behaving like this
Yes,
when
what am
they're
I
an
doing?
angel, right? And so
Yeah.
I think Joni sort of touches on that to say
Yeah.
that it's likely because they feel most safe in
Yeah.
that space, right?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
are allowed to like feel their emotions.
Yes,
Mhm.
and they
so
need to
it's-
release because they've been holding it together all day.
Yeah.
Think of yourself. You need release when you're feeling anxious and pent up, right? It's
Yeah.
just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 And so
And
you
coming
might,
full circle of like of what you
Yes.
answered is that, what can parents do in that
Yes.
moment? Just be there for them. Have that
Regulate,
calm,
relate, yeah.
help them regulate. Go through with them.
Mhm.
and you're not even necessarily solving their problems or
Yeah.
fixing things, right? And I think
Yeah.
that that's what,
Yeah.
like, as
a
parents,
good point.
we tend to do. We want to like go out and
Yeah.
fix whatever that
Yeah.
problem is.
Mhm.
But sometimes, if we just sitting back and being with them in
And
their
it's not
feelings and their emotions,
and it's not a
that's-
judgment thing. And a lot of parents want to do it right, and they're worried that
Yeah.
people hear that their child is losing control at home. They think they're the only ones who are going through it. We're all going through it. all
You're
the
not
time.
alone. Yeah.
You're not alone, and that's just a piece of it, right?
Mhm.
So, okay,
Exactly.
question
Yeah.
4.
Okay, on to 4. Here we are. So,
Okay.
my child seems to push my buttons constantly. Can you help my child stop this? And how do I respond to this situation where my child seems to be pokes at me, right? Why is it me and maybe not
Right.
like their dad or their
Right.
teacher or, yeah. So,
Well, I think that happens often where you see a child who's kind of picking and the parent is getting more irritated. Try not to take it personally. I think that's a piece of it. Is we as parents, we go, oh, why me? Why
Yeah.
is this happening
Yeah.
with me, right? So not taking it personally. They are communicating something to you, and you may be their safe person. Again, so that
Mhm.
picking, you may be
Yes.
that safe person, so they know they're not going to get in trouble by talking about these things or picking at you. Or maybe they just know that if they pick at you long enough, maybe they'll give in. The parent will give in.
Mhm.
So they do those things. But if a parent is feeling triggered, I would say take a step back and ask yourself, what is happening in this moment,
Mhm.
right?
And it
'Cause-
could be your child's way of connecting with you and
Yes.
developing that attachment.
Thank you for
as
saying
well.
that. That's
It's-
exactly it.
Yeah.
And some
So
people are
keep
just
in
more,
mind.
more sensitive to that piece. It's not because you're being triggered because your child's picking on you because you're to blame. They're communicating. Period. That's it. They're communicating something to you, and you have to be an interpreter all the time, and you're safe. So we have one final question, do we not?
I have to get the next one for Erin.
Okay.
How do I keep the peace at home?
Ooh, yes, right? And we can all relate to that, where
Mhm.
there's times when you just want to pull your hair out.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it, maybe, and this is my own maybe theory a little bit, is being able to embrace a little bit of chaos, right? And I think
Oh, I love
sometimes
that.
as parents, like we
Mhm.
have really high expectations
Yeah.
for, or we imagine like how we envision something playing out, whatever
Mhm.
it might be, whether it's the bedtime routine
Yes.
or dinner time. We have these expectations that that might not always be realistic. And so
That's
when
true.
when things go sideways for a moment, it could become overwhelming and we get caught up in those moments, right? And so I think that being able to accept that there's going to be a certain amount of unpredictability or
Yeah.
chaos
And be
when
okay
you
with
have
that.
when you have kids around,
Yep.
maybe embracing it a little
Yep.
bit, that will help maybe make the home feel more peaceful, right?
Yeah.
And really acknowledging those moments when things are going well and hanging on
Yes.
to those,
Oh,
right?
I
And
love
being
that.
able to,
Yes.
yeah, right? Where it went well and holding on to that and having
It's
gratitude
one thing
for-
that happened that went great. Hold
Yeah.
on to that with all your might because parenting is tough.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very tough. Now, I know we have a bonus question, but I also know we're running out of time. So maybe we could just kind of wrap up the final piece of that. It is for Joni, am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. So why are kids so much more anxious and cannot cope?
Mhm.
Nowadays?
That's-
That's a bit.
That's a huge one, and it could go
Yes.
in many different
Yes.
avenues. So I think my kind of short answer of that is like kids are like so busy these days, and sometimes they just don't have that coping mechanism. So it's just like a matter of giving them that space. And I relate to the play therapy piece
Mhm.
because I do a lot of play therapy with kids, and it's just giving them that platform of exploring and able to
Yeah.
like just play out some stuff. You know, remember those days when we used to go out
Yes.
and play and just do whatever with
Conflict
our-
through the play. You're working
Yes.
through scenarios. You're figuring out how to navigate life through your play.
Yeah.
Kids are
So-
missing that
Yeah,
nowadays.
so
and it's-
sometimes they just need that extra just
yeah.
chill time or whatever. Like just like have that conversation with your kid. Like, are you overworked? Do you feel
Yeah.
like just overwhelmed all the time? Like just have that.
Yeah, and you don't have to feel overwhelmed all the
Yeah,
time, right?
right.
That our body we really do need to be able to rest.
Yeah.
and-
Exactly.
Exactly. Just our not only our kids, we need it too.
Yeah, we need it too. Yeah,
Yeah.
so these are the top 5 questions. We put a bonus question in there. These are just some of the things we hear from parents, and that's why we want to address them today. Because why?
Your
Your
mental health matters.